mean, again, in the beginning, we're just going to have some banter, have some fun, give him some B-roll footage, and he can have us kind of talking, giggling, whatever it may be.
Okay. Would you like to tickle me?
That's for later, Kevin.
Well, cheers to that.
One of the questions that I really have that a lot of customers ask is what the ultimate total cost of ownership is, and really factoring in all sorts of things from the hardware all the way through. So, Kevin, what's your thoughts on that, on total cost of ownership?
So, I didn't really bring metrics with me today, but I can talk about it because we talk about this with our customers. So, the cost of something, as we say, is the cost you pay up front and the cost you have to pay over the lifetime, total cost of ownership. I think probably one of the most expensive things for customers that are kind of, I'll use the term uninitiated in our industry, is switching cost. So I think a lot of times at Profound Technologies, we get people literally calling us all the time, every day, just because of our presence on the web and how we've kind of built our relationships digitally. People calling us all the time about things not working. And why is that? Well, a couple things are frequently the case. One is that they use an inferior quality provider. So they use someone that found their way into being able to buy Crestron or even Logitech or QSys or some large format display. And they're like, hey, it doesn't work. And they also say, by the way, it never worked, right? And so I think switching costs is a real big cost for people's total cost of ownership because they don't start with the relationship question first. And that's, funny for us, being an IT and AV company, and we're kind of on that, more technical side of the spectrum, but, we as owners of the company and our organization is very relationship oriented. And we think that investment is a huge one that pays a lot of dividends long term. And those are kind of like, figurative language, but it's true. When someone picks the right technology partner and makes a conscious effort in this company, in this case, Profound Technologies, really cares about, designing it properly, using the right platforms, bringing to bear the technical staff that has the capability to put it in day one to be able to service it long term. That's a huge saving. So I think that in a lot of ways kind of describes total cost of ownership is switching costs if you don't choose correctly, and then really the return on your investment if you pick the right partner. We could talk a little bit more generally about what bids do and that sort of thing, because we talked about that before, but that's another element. It's funny, regionally here out of our Philadelphia office, there's a large national competitor that we don't compete with very often, but 2 times recently we learned that they won the project, close to $1 million project in the case of this one, and then later came back and change ordered for over 6 figures.
So typical.
So that's a cost, of ownership, and again, it comes from how you're.
It's a bait and switch cost.
Yeah. So I think we do a good job, as Profound Technologies, of all the things I mentioned already with the relationship focus and having the right technical staff, but we also, we know what is appropriate, in the industry. We know when we benchmark, how we price and how we go to market, that it's fair and reasonable. It's not the lowest cost. That's not what we're about, but we know it's fair and reasonable. So
it's the correct cost.
Yeah, it really is. It's the cost to be able to, pay our team well and to make a respectable, profit, but it's not overkill. And I think
it's also the cost you're going to get to at the end anyway.
It is.
With anyone else, actually, frankly, will end up costing more,
right,
because they'll be retroactively trying to solve the problems.
Exactly. So pay it now or pay it later, but then
higher,
and with much frustration and delay.
Yeah, it's funny you said. I got a call this week from a customer who, like you said, backdoored into Crestron. They knew somebody that could get it. They put it in, but they had no idea how to program it or make it work. And the thing that people forget is that when we talk about more sophisticated solutions, whether it be something that's a DSP-based solution like a Tessera or a QSC, BYAMP, any of those products, or something like a Crestron device, they require some engineering and smarts on the back end to make sure that those are actually doing something. They're really just black boxes. And how well they perform comes down to the technician that you hire and the engineer and the person who's putting it all together. And so if you're getting a screaming deal on some hardware that you figured out, you're making a big mistake by you're going about it the opposite way. You should be looking at it saying, who is going to be really good at making the solution work well? And they can definitely provide me with the hardware. right? Instead of, I got a great deal on the hardware, but now I got to go find someone to do it. Because now you're not incentivizing that person. Like when I got that phone call this week, I was like, well, I mean, we don't really make any money on doing just programming for somebody.
Right.
And so we're having all the risk and none of the reward, you know, and that's not fair to companies like us.
Getting the hardware is the easy part.
It's very easy.
The full solution is the hard part.
Yep.
The pre-planning,
Engineering
the
it.
you know.
Yep, engineering.
That's the
appropriate.
hard part.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think those are really important factors. Obviously, you need to factor in the maintenance costs of managing that solution, because we do live in a world where these products need to get updated on a regular basis. You do want to factor in the idea that you've got somebody that's on hand ready to respond when you've got a problem, that they can handle it quickly. I know one of the things we offer that I'm really excited about is that we offer in our proposal right up front, it comes automatically for a managed services agreement, just added into the number at the bottom. And it's not expensive. At the end of the day, I think when we add it up, it's under $2,000 a room typically for the whole year. Now, that's a huge benefit to a customer, because if you think about any of the other companies in our industry that charge you for service, they're going to charge you $2,000 for coming out for a day, right? And we're giving you an entire year, which means that every couple weeks we're going to log in and we're going to push out updates for your systems. We're going to make sure that they're functioning correctly. We're going to give you full remote support anytime you need it. And heaven forbid there's something that fails, we're going to show up at the job site and fix it, right? And that's included right up front of the discounted price if you choose that with us. Yeah. So it's a huge value to you, but you have to factor that in. When we talk about pricing as well, one of the areas that I always get kind of challenged by is when people set wrong expectations to the decision makers, right? The IT team knows what they need. They come in and they check out the demos, they get it. But the decision maker doesn't understand the value that you're actually getting at the end. And that's always a tough hurdle. And so I would definitely recommend the listeners out there, do your research. Understand your total cost of ownership, because total cost of ownership is not just, hey, I figured out the budget for the hardware.
Yeah.
Right? It's everything involved, from the hardware, the engineering, the installation, and the maintenance of that
It's
solution.
the worst when someone says, well, I can go buy that online for X amount of money instead of the price you guys are giving me. Well, yeah, because the price online doesn't include the smarts behind it.
Absolutely.
So you're left trying to figure it out on your own
Yep.
at that price.
And there's a lot that we've learned over the years of how to do it right. Even the cookie cutter solutions, which we've learned our lessons with mistakes that we did early on, where we were like, let's cut some corners to save a few bucks, and it just wasn't worth it. We learned what products work with it, what don't work with it, what peripheral devices work well and what don't. You know, what are worth your money putting into it. And kind of leading into that would be something like a BYOD device, for example. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit more about that. But solutions like, I'll give you the example because it's quick on my mind, but Logitech has got a device called the Switch. And the Switch is their BYOD device that you can add onto a solution, an appliance solution where you can have a plug on the table that gives customers the ability to plug in and do BYOD as well. And I usually recommend customers against that. What's your thoughts, Brett, on that?
I mean, my thing is that, and we've seen this a lot, that not every laptop manufacturer does these connections correctly.
It's true.
It's literally a thing with just an individual laptop at times.
Yeah.
And when you're getting your laptop from the IT department and it's the same laptop and everybody's getting the same laptop, because that's how, large scale works, you don't have a choice. And so now you've bought into a solution that's not even compatible with the laptop that you're using. And now that problem is rampant across all your users. So you have things like that can come up. And again, it comes back to configuring your device once you even plug it in and making sure that you're connecting to all the peripherals correctly. To me, it is a solution for a unique type of customer. It works for a unique type of customer, and someone that's going to be a bit more tech savvy, or someone that has a dedicated staff that can be on call to come to the conference room and help you figure it out. But I would tend to lean more towards the appliance for literally probably 90% of our customers. I would say you should be looking at appliance.
Yeah, and that's actually the exact advice that I give. And we've all seen it. A lot of times our devices these days don't plug in with an HDMI, right? A lot of times the video output is USB-C, right? And do you know what the cable for BYOD looks like? It's a USB-C cable, okay? It's USB-A, USB-C, which most people are USB-C anymore. And so now you've got a USB-C device sitting on the table that the client or any user walks in and thinks, that's how I use content share. They plug it in, and as soon as they plug it in, it reboots the system into BYOD mode, and now you're in a position where you've now washed your appliance, right? And it's very confusing. So I do the same thing as what Brett suggested. I usually tell my higher level users, my IT teams, I say, listen, if you want BYOD option, I'm going to give it to you, but I'm going to tuck it under the table.
I'll hide it here.
And we're going to hide it. You're going to know it exists. And if you have a situation where you need to use it, it's supported.
Yep.
But your average user doesn't get confused by it.
Yep.
It's true.
Right.
I mean, even with how you can wire it, it can be very confusing to begin with. You could actually wire it for BYOD, or you could wire it as an input.
Exactly right.
This is where I like, not for BYOD, but just, well, as an alternative for BYOD, but, in Logitech's case, they have the reach, and it's USB-C.
Yeah.
It gives you a longer distance. It can do full, 65 watts, so you could get, power to your laptop if you would like.
Yeah.
With the main station that it plugs into, you could also add a keyboard and mouse, and also a wireless pointer. So that's a nice solution, and you could skirt BYOD. You just use it as a way to be so many things in the room, video, charging, everything.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those devices that not a lot of people know about at this point. So, we definitely can introduce you to some new devices like that. So another question I get often is return on investment, right? Like, that's the big term, ROI, right? Okay, so I've invested this money, I've spent $20,000 on my conference room. How am I gonna get that money back, right? And the thing is, it's different for every customer, right? It's different for every company and how you operate your business. But we had some thoughts that we wanted to kind of introduce as well. So you had a way to maybe justify it to those decision makers to understand how this makes sense.
I mean, the first thing I would say is you kind of don't have a choice but to have these kinds of solutions nowadays. I mean, post-COVID, there's still hybrid work, but a majority of people are back in the office. And at the same time of them being back in the office, not everyone is there every single day, which means that you constantly are having hybrid meetings. And
yeah, I mean, we let our office staff take one day at home a week.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies do that same thing.
I agree.
so having that option available all the time is necessary. On top of that, it's now extremely commonplace to do video conferencing. I mean, we've been in this business for a long time, and it wasn't always commonplace, and now you're not going to ever not see video conferencing in the workplace anymore. So as far as ROI, I mean, there is a concept of you kind of don't have a choice but to invest in this for the sake of your own employees and your own customers. So your return on investment is doing business every day. But yeah, I know you were talking about it the other day.
Yeah, I think with so starting from the premise that people do business in meeting room scenarios. So I think that that's not going away. In large offices, you think of like the Googles and the Microsofts, not as platforms that we're talking about in this context, but just as big companies that have engineers and collaborators that need to come together. So the premise is that type of collaboration is and will continue to be.
Yeah.
And so with that concept, I think why wouldn't someone want to invest in their meeting rooms and have the ability to have an AI assistant in every room?
Yeah.
Just that alone is a 100%, return on your investment. I mean, it's incalculable because of how much, we all these days, whether you're using Grok or you're using ChatGPT, you have your AI of choice, and you get the benefit from it. If your kid's listening to this, you're doing your homework with it, right? But if your adult's doing this, it's doing copywriting, it's doing code for you, it's doing so many things. And then today, not some point in the future, today, with Zoom, for example, you could, we could just be sitting at the Experience Center, and I could just turn the AI assistant on for a local presentation, and it would take a complete transcript and give me notes.
Yep.
That alone is well worth it and priceless, and the same thing can be done with Teams. So I think that just given that meeting rooms are not going away, they're a component part of organizations in how they collaborate. Because I think that the thought might be, well, Kevin, we could just all be from our desks. And that's just not practically what big businesses are expecting of their teams. They want their teams in their buildings. I mean, I'm thinking about, when Comcast and Meta and so many of these companies post-COVID were like, hey, look, I know we said everybody could work from home, but no.
Yeah.
Laying off massive amounts of people and saying you're coming back.
Yep.
And so they want people there collaborating. And
Higher collaboration, higher creativity, and that's in person.
Yeah,
which means in person in a room together.
Right. So now you're going to want to use modern tools in that toolkit, and that is AI-enabled room systems, and so you need those room systems.
And there's a big difference between having a cheap solution that you lose the intimate experience you get this camera way back in the back of the room with everybody really tiny on the far call.
Fuzzy and tiny.
Yeah. Or having a quality camera, maybe even that zooms in automatically on the person that's speaking, or maybe that frames up close. Using technology to make this a more intimate experience, right? Huge difference between that experience. Yeah. And so the number one piece of advice I would give is don't cut the corners. I mean, there is reasonable ways of doing this. If you had reached out to us 5 years ago to say, hey, I want to do a video conferencing solution, it would be well over $100,000, right? And today that is doable for under 20, you know? And so there's no reason to cut corners and say, instead of spending an 18,000, I want to spend 11. That savings is not going to be enough to give you the experience at the end of the day that you want to get. Right. So it's very important to look at the budget appropriately as well.
I agree.
Last thing I want to talk about in this section is really dealing with what do you do when you've got like the person in your operation, and heaven forbid it's the IT guy, right? The guy who's leading your IT team, but the person in the operation that is older and maybe stuck in their ways, right? And I mean, technology changes literally at this point every week, okay? I mean, there's new updates and new features getting pushed out on a regular basis, but one of the bigger challenges that I deal with customers is, in fact, I was just in a meeting last week and they said, well, I don't think we can do dual display because people just aren't used to it, right? Or like, I don't know if we need to have, let's stick with the appliance mode, the BYOD mode, the BYOD mode instead of appliance mode, because that's what everybody's been doing for the past 10 years. Just because you've been doing it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, right? And so one of the important things to me is sometimes you've got to be maybe even the bad guy, but you've got to force your team into, you know, moving with technology, into upgrading their technology, into doing things a little bit differently, stepping outside of the comfort zone and doing something that is maybe not what they're used to. If you're not doing that as an operation, you're leaving something on the table, right? You are going to fall behind. You're going to be irrelevant in your industry. It's extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're just buying video conference equipment now, it better not be for the first time.
Yeah, it's true.
Because you're already behind.
Yeah.
So I would hope that they would kind of see the writing on the wall and trust that, you know, this is, we're trying to lead you in the right direction. We're trying to be your partner. We're trying to be your advisor in this scenario. And, you know, to your point, doing what you've done before doesn't equal immediate satisfaction for what you need to do in the future.
Well, I think our experience center at Profound Technologies is huge for the purpose of showing and telling. Yeah. And I can comment that from my experience, I'm still surprised at how many C-level individuals, you know, whether CEO, CTO, come into the experience center to figure out what's going on. So I think there's a certain, well, non-zero percentage of managers that are willing to come clean and say, I don't know. Yeah. And we've had them through the experience center and they love it because then they're like, okay, this is what it's supposed to be. Yeah. And so for people that are stuck in their ways, I'd probably just do the same thing. I'd say, well, come to Profound. Yeah. Let us show you what is the state of the art. You know, let us walk you through it. Let us be your guide. And then I think it would just prompt them to rethink everything. Because I think that it's kind of like the example I use a lot of times, the consultant, the CPA, the lawyer, they never want to say they don't know, right? And so I think the IT stakeholder is a bit of the same. You know, they want to say, I know, because this is what we've always done, and that's a safe place to be. And I think that's where, you know, our voice is not necessarily to be the counterpoint, but yes, you know, definitely the counterpoint, and say, hey, listen, you know, I know that's what you're saying, but let us show you what we're seeing that so many people, you know, are adopting and are loving, and maybe reconsider. And I think that's probably the best thing we can do, you know, short of slapping them upside the head.
I can't agree more. And I've said this many times, but the Experience Center sells itself, right? It sells the solution without us even doing anything. And I love that because I don't like the environment of any of our team members selling people. That's not our goal. Our goal is not to sell you. Our goal is to introduce you to technology that can make your life better, right? And so that's what we do with the Experience Center. You can come in, you can play with it, you can test it, you can do test calls, you can see all the products set up. You can have an opportunity to see how it can actually bring a better solution to your operation. Because heck, every operation is different. You know, you have different needs than somebody else down the street does. But this solution will still help you in some way. Whether it's adding a document camera, whether it's adding in the whiteboard camera, whether it's putting in multi-camera tracking. whether it's doing an all hands space, or just a simple huddle room. We've got solutions as well for things like if you're doing hot desking, right? You can have hot desking solutions set up. If you just want to do a video wall in your lobby because you want to look impressive to your guests that come in. If you've got a training center, all these solutions all exist, and we can show you how all of those can make your life better.
Yeah, it also gives people confidence because you're seeing it work.
Yeah.
You're not having to just
Not a pie in the sky.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just this idea. You get to see how easy it is.
Yeah.
You get to see it work. And so you go back with that confidence of, okay, I know what I'm buying. I tried it, I tested it, it worked, it was easy. Like everyone's gonna love this. So yeah, it really does.
I think that's funny because I've got the number one thing I see when IT guys come in is they go, I just want to get to the point where I don't have to set the meeting up every time. Because I always have to go in the room, set the meeting up for the executives. And we test the system every morning before their meetings because we want to make sure it's going to work. But still, it sometimes fails or whatever. And I love it because I walk them into our experience center and I say, this room has been installed for the past 3.5 years and has not once been touched other than just doing normal updates to it. And I walk in here maybe once every 3 days and I just push start. And it starts. It works every time. I never have a problem with it. It tells me which meetings are queued up. I can hit a button and one touch go, right? And so it's really nice to be able to do that. And it's legit. We're not in there working on the room before you guys show up. Like it literally works as soon as you walk into the room.
Mm-hmm.